Hey, I'm Dr. Elad Granot. I'm an entrepreneur, investor, and dean of Cleveland's Business School, the prestigious Boler College of Business at John Carroll University. This show is designed for those who think differently. We talk candidly about innovations in technology, in startups, venture capital, the global economy, higher education, how to lead, how to fail. We will leave no stone unturned. Expect passionate and sometimes controversial conversations with guests from all over the business spectrum once every month, wherever you stream your podcasts. So today's episode covers science, technology, and how we're fostering an interest in STEM for future generations. We will talk candidly with Marvin Logan Jr., Executive Director at Oh Wow! Children's Center for Science and Technology. And this is Bottom Line with the Business Dean. Today's guest is Marvin Logan Jr., Executive Director at Oh Wow! Children's Center for Science and Technology. Looking forward to talking. But before we get into the conversation, I will start with one hot take that could be taken as a hot rant, depending on what you think about it. And I want to talk a little bit about leadership style, and I want to talk about personality as a human being, and then your personality as a leader, and say a few things. Look, I've been in leadership positions since I was 19. I've been privileged to be in military, corporate, and now academic institutions as a leader in leadership positions. One of the things that allows, I think, for an effective leader is to be an effective follower, an effective member of the team. And that means that there's always a leader that you report to, work with, work alongside, and so on. And so I'm no longer a young man, even though I deny it some days. And so I have some experience, right? And my experience has been that whatever you expect from yourself is as much as you can expect from your leader, and certainly as much as you can expect from those on your team. And that comes down to personality. There are some things you can't change. You can gain leadership by being appointed as a leader, which is what I call low-level leadership. You're a leader because it's your title. Great. But if you stop there, you're really not going to be much of a leader. And then you sort of evolve, if you're lucky, and if you persist throughout your career, into a position where you're an inspiring leader. People follow you not because they have to, but because they respect who you are. They aspire to be members of the vision that you're building, and they are aware of and appreciate your track record. So at that height of leadership is, by the way, not the highest level. The highest level of leadership is developing other leaders. And that is something that is very rare, and it's a privilege to get to a point where you develop other leaders. I say all that because I've been noticing over the last 4 decades that you cannot separate who you are as a leader from who you are as a person. And that goes both ways. If you are a smart, ambitious, curious, friendly, charismatic, justice-seeking person, then you're going to be that type of leader. If you are a petty, vindictive, jealous, hysterical person, you're going to be that kind of leader. You can't mask it. You can't fake it. You could do it maybe a little bit with some target audiences. You could do it with your board. You could do it with, in public appearances. At the end of the day, your team knows. And then the entire team is affected by either of these extremes and anything on the spectrum. So if you are a to simplify things, a good person, then you are a good leader. People want to work with you. And by the way, everything is personal. Nothing is business. I hate when people say, oh, it's only business. Oh, really? The number one rule is no a-holes. I hear it from everyone. And so if you're in that type of situation where you are a person who's evolved over time, none of us are born perfect. None of us die perfect. But if you strive, then your team knows that and appreciates it. And you rise up the level of leadership, not just by your title, but by who you are as a person. And on the flip side of that, if you are a person who is petty, a person who looks to blame for failures, a person who labels failures. And I just saw Jonas talking. Did you see that clip when he was talking about, he was asked, was this season a failure? And he was like, come on, no, obviously, you don't, what did he say to the guy? Do you get promoted every year? He said to him, a year you don't get promoted. Is that a failure? Same thing. And so, pointing out failures is a failure, is a personal failure. I always look at failures as opportunities to fix things, move forward, never make the same mistake again, but never really to blame. And so when you're working with leaders who are that type of person, and you're working with leaders who are the opposite, who look to blame, who look to usually lay blame because it's actually their fault, and everybody knows that. That's really the delta between two types. And my comment and my hot take / rant is, whether you're a leader or are on a leadership team or working with a leader, be a good person, be a kind person, be a generous person, be an inquisitive person, be a person who understands that nobody is perfect, including, and first of all, you. It's hard, it's humbling. Be humble. And sure, be confident and know what your skills are, but you're working with a team, you're working with human beings, and treating them like you wouldn't want to be treated is a bad leadership style, which ends with disaster. Same thing on the flip side. Treat people like you want to be treated. It's amazing what kind of results you're going to get as a team. That's my hot take for today. Any comments about that before we start?
So I've been blessed to be in leadership positions for most of my life, whether it was an athlete as a team captain, whether it was student body president when I was at Kent State, leading our cohort at Notre Dame, or leading an organization that I do now. I've had the unique pleasure everywhere I've been. I've always had someone reporting to me at some point in time. And I'm a leadership fanatic. I enjoy learning from past leaders. I enjoy watching other leaders. We'll get into this a little bit later, but literally my career started with going and working for a leader and just sitting underneath him and watching everything that he was doing and everything that he was, teaching, not teaching, showing. And I'm an extreme nerd. So I love film. I love music. I love TV shows. I'm a crime film fanatic.
Yeah.
So Goodfellas, the Sopranos as a TV show, The Godfather, incredible exposés on quality leadership and poor leadership. And so what can you learn from the good? What can you learn from the bad? And how can you put all those things together? And so I wholeheartedly agree. Good leaders have to be good people.
Yeah.
And when you see bad leaders in leadership, you see bad things. And so how can you continue to grow and evolve as a leader? How can we as leaders take a step back and say, hey, this is good, this is not so good. I think that's an excellent leadership quality, when you can admit that something did not go well, that you didn't do something right. And so I'm grateful to, I think the best testament to my leadership is that I've helped develop some really awesome people. And I think they have the capability to go way farther than I ever will.
Like I said, the highest level, which requires humility, right? And I couldn't agree more. By the way, our taste in film and TV is eerily similar. We'll have another episode just about that. So I couldn't agree more. That the idea in leadership is to develop others. In fact, my secret sauce as a leader has been to collect teams around me of people who are better at what they do than I am.
Oh, yes.
Otherwise, what do I need them for? And so now there's an ego situation here where you have to admit, embrace, and then promote folks who are better than you at what you do. And at the end of the day, let them go when they reach a level where they need to move on. And so be there for them. But in general, collect people around you who are better than you.
Being the best and the smartest in the room is a waste of time.
It sucks.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And why am I even here, right? What am I going to learn? How are we going to push forward? It's much better to have many more people who know many more things and do things a lot better. And again, it's hard. It's an ego situation. I have no problem with it. I can't tell you that I've always embraced it. I also have evolved, but it's the best, and people appreciate that. And so it's not that big of a secret. I never understand when I see people leading from a point of lack of confidence. It's gonna seep into your leadership team. It's gonna impact the results. It's gonna impact your stakeholders. And it's eventually going to impact who you are as a person. You're going to take it home with you. It is a bad idea. Now, I'm not judging people as good or bad. Who am I to judge? Ask my wife; she'll tell you there's no way. And so, but we know the sound fundamentals of being a good person. And so you and I agree about not just The Sopranos, which I can probably quote verbatim, including and even more so The Goodfellas. And I raised my kids right. They can do that as well. And so
Very good.
let's get a little bit into our topics today. We're going to talk about science, technology, fostering an interest in STEM for future generations. But maybe I'll take a step back and say we met at an EdTech conference, and maybe sort of discuss technology, education, and what they are in terms of gateways into the future, both as a society, but much more importantly, in what builds up a society, individuals. It is critical to be technologically proficient. So I want to talk about that. But let me take a step back and ask you a little bit about yourself. Give us some background about who you are, where you've been, what you've done to get you to the point of what you're doing now, and what is that?
Absolutely. First of all, God bless Chris Berry, because the best thing that he does is cause cool people to meet each other.
Yeah.
And glad that we got the opportunity to meet at that EdTech conference.
Shout out to Ohio X.
Yes. Ohio X.
Yes.
If you're not on the train, get on it now. So I am originally from Warren, Ohio, born and raised, single parent household. Dad raised my sister and I, GM retiree. I've always had a passion for education, for learning, for technology. I was a kid who used to break stuff apart, figure out how it works, and then anger my father when I didn't know how to put it back together. But when we were growing up, he wouldn't allow us to go outside and play until we read something or wrote something, and so it instilled something in me early on, and so was able to go on to Kent State and get my bachelor's degree. Launched into a career that has been, really, really just a beautiful and wonderful thing. Went back to school in the middle of a pandemic because I was crazy, and got a degree from Notre Dame. And now I lead one of the largest STEM education organizations in Northeast Ohio, the OWOW Center for Science and Technology. OWOW originally started as a cool place with a collision of fun and STEM education, and now we have evolved into something that's quite wonderful, quite beautiful, as Ohio is continuing to evolve into the Silicon Heartland, and we're entrenched in the middle of the Voltage Valley. OWOW is providing engaging and colorful exhibits at our facility in downtown Youngstown. We have over 20 zones of exhibits where students can get hands-on experiences through the different disciplines of STEM. We provide challenge-based and project-based learning training for educators to implement it into their curriculum. We serve thousands of students in the in-school and after-school space with STEM intervention. We have awesome STEM kits where you can take your experiments home and get
Sure, the parents love that.
Oh yeah. They love it until we blow something up in their house and get glitter everywhere. But it's a great way to learn. It's pretty cool. I was fortunate to I'm on year 2 at my time in the organization, and going through a lot of transition and change as we continue to grow to meet the needs of the region. As Ohio is traversing this terrain and becoming really the technological hub of the Midwest, and I'm really fortunate and grateful to be at such an organization at such a critical time. So
we don't just have the same taste in movies and TV, but we have the same vision. Obviously, we met in a place where people like us hang out. So I have a few follow-up questions. First of all, just curious, what's the youngest age that comes to OWOW?
Probably, all ages come to OWOW because people have their strollers. But we originally, start serving that pre-K, preschool ages where we usually get an opportunity to dig in. And then our programs go all the way through 12th grade. One of the cool things is that adults learn quite a bit with us as well.
Oh, sure.
And it's a fun place of discovery. And we are now starting to get into new spaces where we can use that project and challenge-based learning to do career exploration programs where, we may be doing some app development or students learning about biotechnology and finding the non-traditional ways to be able to impact students. I think when you look at the landscape in Ohio and where we are and what we could be, we need all the tools in the tool belt to reach everyone that we can.
Yeah.
And when you hear the amazing opportunities that are before us, but then the shortage of folks that we have, well, hey, we've got lots of young girls, lots of students of color, lots of students from rural communities, students from low-income communities that aren't getting that high-quality STEM programming that have the opportunity to contribute to this evolving ecosystem. So that's a big part of our focus, a big reason why we are shifting and starting to really focus on being a STEM impact organization.
Yeah, I love that. I've been talking. You said that you had the unfortunate experience of watching previous episodes of this podcast. So you probably heard me talk about, and I just got back from with a group of MBA students from Israel, and one of the things that they do there is they start STEM education at the kindergarten level, and then keep pushing it through with the same concept of as broad of an inclusion net at the beginning. And I think inclusion is always a factor of access, right? Mm-hmm. You can't include if people can't access. And so how do you access is really sort of the ecosystem secret. I've been asked many times, what can we learn, and how come they're so far ahead of us, and that. And so it starts with education. And then you mentioned a couple things. You mentioned the hands-on part of it, and which is interesting because I think it's critical and becoming increasingly critical. Despite technology, right? And the idea, if the pandemic taught us anything, is that Zoom is cool up to a point, and eventually this is critical, probably never going away. I hope it doesn't. I don't want to live to see when that goes away.
No.
But the point is hands-on, right? And so you take people from very young ages and insist on hands-on. And I can tell you that I see that as a dean of a business school. I can't imagine someone learning how to do accounting or marketing or supply chain or finance and not be hands-on, right? We are at the receiving end of what you're developing, and I'm responsible, the general I, into pumping talent into the ecosystem, right? So I need more of what you do. At the end of the day, I need them to graduate with the skills that the region needs to stay here. And by the way, a lot of our students would stay here, and a lot of them do, but there needs to be opportunity, right? So we're all working together, which, by the way, is another recent development, right? You said, God bless Chris Berry. I couldn't agree more, because these type of initiatives are new. Especially in Northeast Ohio, which used to be very parochial, but now I'm excited about what we're seeing. We're working with Mayor Bibb. We're working with the Greater Cleveland Partnership. Yesterday I met with Team Neo. All of us, all of a sudden, are aligned, right? You and I met at an event where everybody was there, and we all want to go towards the same thing without really caring about who's responsible for what and who's going to get credit for what. And so, hands-on learning, I think, is a theme. Regardless of the discipline. And then tell me a little bit more about the career development element of it.
So it's actually refreshing to hear your commentary, because my entire career, I've been blessed to work with a group of individuals where we've always been trying to crack the nut of, okay, we have groups of people who don't have access to some of these traditional pathways. And we're trying to eat an elephant. Well, my dad always used to say the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So how can you find ways to recreate some of those experiences? And I'm not saying that project and challenge-based learning is a complete replacement for traditional learning. However, it's one of my favorite stories since I've been at a while, and I could probably name hundreds of them, other places that we've been. You go into a school with an after-school assignment, and you have the quote-unquote problem child. Oh, well, he's disruptive in class.
Used to be me.
Not really, right. It was me. It was me as well.
Yeah.
I was a hellion growing
Yeah.
up, and not engaged. You get the teacher that pulls you to the side. I'm not sure how he's going to respond. If it gets too troublesome, let us know. We'll take him out. Goes from being incredibly disruptive to, we're 6 weeks into a program, he's speeding through the assignment, then going and helping his classmates. His grades are going up, attendance in school is better. And I think that's how some of these hands-on experiences give you the opportunity. Now with project and challenge-based learning, let's say we're doing app development, and we'll give you some parameters. It's like bowling with lanes. And so you or guardrails. And it's really proctor led, and this glass did something. How did that happen? And we're explaining it to you. And then really taking that from the pre-K through 7th grade, and then once the students get to 7th grade, let's take the rails off. Let's start giving you some challenges. Let's get individuals that are from industry, because we're firm believers you can't be what you can't see. And so let's get folks in front of you that are going to be able to give you some decent business cases, and then having conversations with those partners. What are the things that you're missing that you see when folks are coming across your door? And then getting with our post-secondary education partners. Are the students prepared when they get to you? If they're not, what are the gaps that you're seeing? Mm-hmm. How much money are college students wasting on remediation? We talk about the student loan debt crisis, and I look at a part of what we do as an opportunity to combat some of that, so that you're not wasting 12 credit hours of cash taking classes that you won't need to take. Mm-hmm. If we can make math and science more obtainable for you. So being able to take that kind of concept, and then working with high school students, and let's bring the right funding partners into the conversation so that these students can earn to learn. Yeah. When I first started my tenure, we went on a listening tour, and the number one thing I was hearing from high school students was, I either have to A, babysit my younger siblings because we can't afford childcare, or B, we're a low income house. I'm old enough to work, so I'm old enough to earn. I'm old enough to help pay some of the bills. So I'm going to go to Taco Bell. I'm going to go to the grocery store. And that's not a knock on folks who work in those places. But if we have an opportunity to expose students to some opportunities to learn through STEM, whether it's additive manufacturing, smart mobility, there are so many different things that can be taught in a project and challenge-based environment. And let's find a way for them to still be able to contribute financially. Let's give them financial literacy, because Ohio becoming the Silicon Heartland is an equity opportunity to me. Yeah. Because when you start talking about those 4 groups and the median income of these roles, these are generational shifts. I mean, you can take someone who is 3rd generation public assistance and get them one job, and suddenly everything changes. Now they have the ability to be a homeowner. Now they have the opportunity to build wealth. Now they have the opportunity to reinvest in their education and the education of their families. And so that's why I think being able to use CBL and PBL and looking at career exploration, taking students from a 2 to 3 day camp or a 2 to 3 week camp, and saying, okay, hey, let's go into something in after school where you can get some more intensive exposure to this opportunity and achieve self-actualization. You want to be an engineer? Fine. Yeah. Let's engineer something. You want to be an app developer? Fine. Let's get an app on the marketplace so that by the time you graduate, you either A, are inspired for continuing education, B, you're ready to enter the workforce right away, or C, you're ready to be crazies like the rest of us and find a way to be an entrepreneur. But I think being able to achieve that and addressing the gaps in STEM education, Team Neil does a great job of highlighting what those misaligned opportunities are. And so I think what we're doing has a chance to greatly impact that, and that's why bringing in the career aspect is so important.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You were saying, I was taking notes as you were talking. We were talking about business cases. You were talking about earn to learn. The college delta between what you learn and what's needed out in the marketplace. And then you use the term inspired. So I want to try and react to some of these things. I'm a transplant in Ohio, but and I was going to say, but I'm a big believer. I think because of that, I'm a big believer.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Don't speak for everyone. And so I'm passionate about what we're doing here. I'm passionate about our potential, and I always worry about. I mentioned that before. I worry about access, right? And I think STEM is a wonderful way to inspire, because you're not going to seek access if you're not inspired, right? And so when you seek access, it's my responsibility to make sure that you have the platforms to access your potential for the future. Because if you fulfill your potential as an individual, then you do that for your family, you do that for your community, you do that for your region, you do that for your state, and so on. I truly believe in that, not just as a transplant in Ohio, but as an immigrant to this great country. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but there's opportunity here, and opportunity comes, and immigrants know that. Opportunity comes from education.
Mm-hmm.
And you're living proof of that. I'm living proof of that. And we know a lot of people that it's very rare when somebody says, I got an education and did nothing for me. Right. And so now, having said that, there are gaps and there are things, and you mentioned that, sometimes there are credits you don't need to be taking, or you could have done other things. And so that's our responsibility to look at that. And one of the things I'm focusing on is what I call tech proficiency. So I'm at the point where I see really talented people. I wanted to say kids because they're 18. Really young, talented people coming in to seek an education and to start their lives and launch their careers, right? And I'm teaching them a variety of disciplines. What I'm not teaching them, and I'm working on changing that now, and business schools don't do that in general, and we're going to talk about your experience in a nonprofit administration program, we don't teach technology. And so I'm producing accounting graduates with no knowledge of blockchain. Mm-hmm. Finance graduates who don't know anything about fintech, never developed an app, in fintech. Marketing graduates who don't understand nothing about, artificial intelligence and how we can implement it. Literally, I just finished teaching an MBA course. I insist on teaching because I sometimes remind myself I got into higher ed because of the teaching part of actually impacting young generations. I was in industry for years and military before that.
I love being to teach.
It's awesome.
Yes.
And so, I got into it for doing that. And so I taught him an MBA level marketing strategy class. And a day before the class started, ChatGPT was announced publicly. Mm-hmm. So class meets, and there's 2 books I assigned. One is Kotler. You got to do Kotler if you do marketing, no matter what. The other was an IMC book. And I said, send it back to Amazon because ChatGPT just took care of that. And so I'm wondering about, are we doing enough to make college grads? In business, it's almost easy. Mm-hmm. I'm changing that right now. But if you're getting an undergraduate degree in English Lit, like I did, or philosophy or religion, should you be exempt from what I call a tech core? Because business grads aren't exempt from a liberal arts core, which I think makes total sense. The liberal arts core is awesome. I went through it. I'm sure you took some courses at Kent State because it builds the foundation for a young person. But how do we let them graduate without a tech proficiency?
You can't.
We can't.
You can't.
And so I'm grateful for you and people in organizations like yours that already prime that talent. By the time I get them 10, 15 years from now, and I want to talk about skipping higher ed in a second, I can take this digitally native, proficient generation and move them forward into the ecosystem. So that was my second rant, I guess. So I want to ask you a question about that. So they develop apps and they get biz cases and all the other stuff. Do they get to the point where they can go immediately into the market and skip higher ed? And if so, obviously I'm worried about that. And I can talk about why. But how does that work?
He loaded me up. So no, I'm actually. This will probably get me into trouble in the Mahoning Valley. I am an advocate, higher education supporter. And I often think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint, we often will devalue what higher education is and what higher education can do. And, you know, I think, again, from an equity standpoint it's a disservice when you start looking at statistical data and you break down demographics of how well people can transition without a 2 or 4 or an advanced level degree. It is astounding.
Yeah.
When you start to look at the Asian population, the brown population, black population, and just low income in general, it becomes incredibly hard. And sometimes we will, bring the trades out like they're Vanna White and they're this great solution. And I'm not downplaying trades again. I'm the father of an electrician who was a GM retiree.
Yeah.
The UAW put food on my table for 20 years.
I get it.
However, I also remember getting to a point where my father wanted to do more and wanted to be more, and felt that had he gone back to school and gotten his education, he would have had the opportunity to do that. Yeah. And I also find it really weird when rooms full of people who have degrees talk about how people don't need degrees.
I know.
It's ridiculous.
It's like you start looking at their pedigree. They have degrees from everywhere,
yes.
and they're telling us not to get it.
Yes.
And then the flip side of that, you got Elon Musk or Zuckerberg saying you don't need it. No, you don't need it.
You don't need it because you came from money.
You don't need it.
And we're not those folks.
And when they talk about by the way, even talking about higher ed is different, right? We're in the Midwest. For us, higher ed matters. If you're in Silicon
the West Coast
Valley,
or the East Coast.
Right? If you're in Silicon Valley, New York City, fine, do whatever you want. But don't tell me that, and especially kids here, that they don't need higher ed. It irritates me a little bit. I don't know if you noticed.
Maybe just tag.
Yeah, it's just craziness. If you look at lifetime earnings with or without a degree, it's $1 million.
Absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely. But I haven't answered your question.
Yes.
So what I believe the opportunity presents, not everybody is going to be a straight out of high school, college educated person. I myself flunked out of graduate school twice before I got my master's degree.
I dropped out of 10th grade. Listen, you want to compare failures?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
So, but being able to go out, get a little bit more life experience, and then starting to see the gap. Oh, I need to close these gaps. These are things that I learn. If I want to learn this on the job, it's going to take me another 10 years to do it. And so the goal is to be able to get those students a taste. And once they see it, everybody's going to have to take their own pathway. And I know, I've been in higher ed spaces. I know if you don't go straight after high school, the probability that you're going to go starts to really dwindle. But I think we have to create options and we have to create opportunity. And so I think being able to skip some of those steps is rough. And if they can get to a market where it's a value, great. If not, at least you'll always have something that you can fall back on. Yep. If nothing else, if my board of 20 folks decides tomorrow that hey, we're done, we're selling this guy, I still have something that I can fall back on, and I should never go through long stretches of time being unemployed because of the time and the effort that I put into making sure that I have a necessary set of skills.
Yes.
So
that's a perfect segue. I know that you do have a master's. Eventually, you went through and got it in nonprofit administration. Tell me about. Well, first of all, now that I know you flunked out twice, tell me what happened there. What changed that allowed you to push through, graduate, and how has it impacted your career?
Absolutely. I'll take a very quick step back to talk about kind of where the spark started. I decided I wanted to be a nonprofit executive at 13. I met 3 black men at a pivotal point in my life. Derek Toles, who is the founder and CEO of Inspiring Minds, an organization that now has chapters all across the country. Sean Wilson, who at the time was the president of Usher's New Look, and Gavin McGuire was the director of programming for Usher's New Look. They're both now in different roles. But I loved what they did. And I found out you could do it for a living. And so I decided, okay, what are the things that I need to do to be able to follow the pathways that they have so I can be able to do this? So the reason I flunked out of grad school was actually pretty simple. I was broke. And I had like 5 jobs. I lived in 5 different places. After I graduated from Kent, I was burnt out, angry. So I did what any other, 23-year-old idiot would do. I packed up everything in my car and I moved to another city when I didn't have a job. And I was at Clark Atlanta University, a historically black college. And to this day, no disrespect to any school that I've been to, it was still probably the best education that I had gotten.
Wow.
Unfortunately, you can't be in a writing intensive program and work 60 hours a week and work late nights and bartend and go out and drive and take drunk people home and expect to produce quality work. Most of the time, I just didn't have the time. I was working a full-time schedule at work, and I was working a full-time schedule doing other odd jobs, trying to survive and trying to make it. The second time was a clerical error on my part. Got in a car accident, had a terrible concussion, did not get the right paperwork from the hospital network, and then that person moved on somewhere else, and then I jumped into the process really, really late, and so wound up being dismissed from the program.
Wow.
But I didn't think that I was going to be able to get into the University of Notre Dame. It's not an easy place to get into.
I heard about it.
Yeah. And thankfully, they took a look at the whole individual. They took a look at the professional experience that I had, and my time there was invaluable. I can say this now without getting fired. I earned my master's degree on the Boys and Girls Clubs of Southeastern Michigan's time, because of the pandemic, we were so light that we didn't have the ability to provide me the chance to take time off of work for continuing education. So I literally did my job while in class all day. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. I would never recommend it for anyone. As a matter of fact, my final class, I took it on my phone.
Wow.
Because I was responsible for, we had summer programs where students had the opportunity to earn and learn. And I was one of the few people in the organization that had the flexibility of schedule, was over the age of 25, that could actually be put on the company's insurance. And so I had to take them to work every day.
Wow.
And I actually drove a van for 8 hours a day for about 2.5 months. And so each morning I would get up. The students who were riding with me would have to listen to my reading material, because I would do the PDF to text.
Yeah.
I read out loud. Sometimes they would even know the answers to the questions in class. And I would figure out, my professor, Dr. John Michelle, love him, didn't give me an inch.
Okay.
Was like, all right, man, hey, listen, if you're going to do this, then you're going to have the same expectations as everybody else. He didn't tell us when we would have quizzes.
Yeah.
So I had to guess based up. But the good thing is he was predictable. So I would be able to figure out when our quizzes would be. So on those days, I would change the pickup schedule for the students so that I would have time to pull over, take 5 to 7 minutes to do my quiz on my phone, and then go back to taking them where they needed to be. And it was blistering. It was an interesting experience. But the great thing about the EM&A program at Notre Dame, everything that we were learning every day, I was doing on the job.
Yeah.
And it created an opportunity where, one of those blitzkrieg executive programs that's in a short period of time. Well, hey, if I'm reading the stuff, if I'm learning the stuff in class and I'm doing the stuff at work, then it sticks. And you don't think it's going to stick, but we were able to make that happen, and invaluable. I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't be able to, understand change management and take an organization through a huge shift like we are now without my experience at Notre Dame. And it has been one of the pleasures and honors of my life.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps. If I were Notre Dame, I'd be incredibly proud, not just of you as a product of the program, but of what you're saying in terms of attributing your accomplishments to that program. That's precisely what a grad program should do. Learning it in the classroom and then applying it, that day or the following day at work or at wherever it needs to be applied. That's what it should do. If it doesn't do that, I'm looking straight at the camera, leave your program. That's
Absolutely.
Not a good program.
Don't do it.
I don't care about rankings. I don't care about if it's Ivy League or whatever it is. If it's not teaching you skills that you could literally use tomorrow in your workplace or wherever it is that you need to be applying these skills, you're in the wrong program. So I really appreciate you saying that. We need to wrap up. We got the start the helicopter sign, and so I want to ask you about the future. Tell me a little bit about, and I know it's hard to predict. I mean, who would have predicted the last 5 years, right? So But what are your ambitions? What are your aspirations? Both for yourself and of course for OWOW.
Ohio has the opportunity to be not just at the center of the Midwest, not just at the center of our country, but the center of the world when it comes to innovation, tech manufacturing, innovation, and design. And so what I see in our future, for OWOW and for myself is being able to take us from being the largest STEM education provider to being the largest STEM impactor when it comes to K through 12 education in the Mahoning Valley. Being able to continually produce qualified, experienced, ambitious, hungry talent that is engaged in advocacy and citizenry, and being able to take Ohio's tech sector to the next level. Ohio hasn't had an opportunity like this since the turn of the last century.
Exactly.
And we have a moment to seize. And my goal is to work with our tremendous community partners and our educators to make sure that our young talent is right at the front of the line and ready to solve the world's next problem.
That is incredibly inspiring. And I have to ask, as a business guy, are you looking at opportunities to franchise, replicate, expand your footprint?
For our board of directors, who I'm sure is listening, OWOW is always open and interested in creating opportunities to serve more students.
Yeah.
We have some really great partners across the state of Ohio, COSI being one of them, that we're all working together in tandem to figure out how can we address this issue, because Ohio becoming the Silicon Heartland is only going to take everybody.
Yeah, and for the board, who's obviously listening and watching, you're lucky to have Marvin, and it's been a sincere pleasure having you here. Thanks so much.
Absolutely,
I totally
my pleasure,
enjoyed
my
it.
friend.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, so thanks for joining us for The Bottom Line with the Business Dean. If you liked what you saw and you liked what you heard, please leave us a rating and a review, and be sure to check out the Boler College of Business on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for more of what's happening with the Business Dean. That's me, and we'll see you next time.